Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I wanted to remind you of our Road to 1,000 subscribers giveaway that we have going on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe and have a public profile, you'll be entered to win a free RX Smart Gear original jump rope. You'll get to pick the pattern of the handles, the color and weight of the cable, and you'll be getting one of the best-selling, best-performing jump ropes out there. Every time we hit a new century mark with the number of subscribers to our channel, we'll randomly select a new winner. And our friend Dave Newman is going to throw in a little something extra for each winner. So a special thanks to our sponsor, RX Smart Gear, to Dave Newman for being such a great partner, and to you for being a loyal listener. Good luck, and I hope you are our next winner.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I wanted to talk to you about our new sponsor, Element 26. They are an innovative company producing lots of products around the CrossFit, strongman, powerlifting space. They have weightlifting belts, they have knee sleeves, they have thumb tape. They have these cool little straps that go around the bars when you're trying to attach a bar to the rig and maybe using it for low bar work, like pull-ups for little kids, or some modifications for like bar muscle ups when you're trying to teach someone to do them. And you know how you wrap those rubber bands around the rig and the J hook to kind of keep everything straight? Well, they've made straps for that. And they're straps kind of like the straps you use for rings. They have a really secure system on it, and you can wrap around the bar and keep that nice and secure. I love their innovation. Their product development team is top notch, and they're just coming up with really different ideas for our space. So check them out at element26.co. That's element26.co, and tell them Kat sent you.
So Matt, do you remember my co-host Amy and Kat, just to make sure?
I do, absolutely, 100%. How are you guys?
Good.
For our listeners, this is Matt O'Keefe, CrossFit legend, businessman in the sport, doer of all things super cool. And so we're just going to have a laid back conversation here. The first thing I want to talk about really is last season. You know, it was your first foray into the new format. First of all, what are your thoughts on the new season of CrossFit, and how did Loud and Live fit into all of that?
Yeah, big question to answer. Obviously, I do like the structure. So if you start there, you know, sort of the stage, the clear path to victory, right? You know, and it's easy for the fans to follow. You know, I did like that. I thought that worked really well. I'm interested, you know, and I think if I'm like putting my critique hat on, because things went really well. Overall, and I think, you know, the real goal in the end to you're trying to accomplish, you know, finding who the best in the world is at this sport. So I think, you know, it still does that, which is really the top goal, right? And getting the right people there to compete for it. And you know, a lot of people are really attracted to that old regional model. I think it's what we learned first. As am I to some extent. I will say I do love where the sanctional system was going. That doesn't mean, you know, because I love that probably most, that this isn't something I am, you know, proud to be a part of and like and think works, right? So I would say, like, on the critique side, like, I don't know, we'll see what the quarterfinals brings over time. I don't you know, for me, I think, you know, I work with a lot of, you know, the top athletes in the sport. If I take my event hat off, I don't know that the layer is necessary to find the fittest. But I do understand, you know, what it does for, you know, creating a storyline and getting more people involved. And there's a goal that's more achievable for a larger group. You know, and I worry about what things like that do to people that, you know, we represent, right? Like, I think it starts to become a lot. You know, I don't know. I don't have all the answers either, but, you know, and I know what CrossFit's dealing with, and, you know, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of, you know, progressing, right? I think you know, that being maybe more connected to the open, just, you know, running it right. I don't know what the answer is, but that stage to me was a little bit weird and surprising year one. But again, that could look beautiful after a couple more years, you know. It could make a lot more sense. I'm interested to see how that plays out. But, you know, on our side, you know, we had Granite Games and West Coast Classic, and, you know, it was obviously a weird year with COVID. So we were really proud to be able to be present. and have live events that people could attend, you know, which was unique globally. I mean, I don't remember how many live events there actually were, but it was like 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. It wasn't all of them, right? And you know, it was awesome. Honestly, it was just great to be back. I mean, for personally and for my team, and you know, we were pumped to be a part of, you know, sending people to the games and that structure, and really interested to see how that looks, you know, in a more normal year. You know, but it was so good to be at a live event. When you're an event, you know, junkie, you know, being able to kind of get back in that environment is like, it's amazing. You know, we've missed it. We didn't get to do Wodapalooza last year. So it was awesome. And those events went really well. You know, and you know, how that plays out moving forward in terms of scheduling. And I'm interested to see, I think that the proximity to the games is really tight for some events. You know, I think we saw, you know, I think what athletes would say is, you know, some of them that went later, like at our event in Vegas, for instance, thought that they might have been at a little bit of a disadvantage from a training perspective for the games, because I think traditional regionals, we always were pretty much done by Memorial Day weekend. So again, you know, that's where my whole question with the quarterfinals comes in, right? Because like, does that make it so that thing gets bumped out a little? But again, I think the best people in the world were at the top of the leaderboard at the game. So what do I know? You know,
so there's a lot to unwrap there, because with that, the quarterfinals, because they didn't force the athlete to make a decision, right, good or bad, whether that is something that needs to happen or not, it stretched out that quarterfinal leg for what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? Right. And if you made people make that decision up front, you could hold that all in one weekend and then compact the season a little bit where it does fit into kind of that old format of a season a little bit better.
Yeah, I think, you know, I know I know the reasoning behind that, and I get it, right? Like it's smart, right? You have 300,000 people doing something that only, you know, less than 1,000 people get to go to do something else after. It's from a, you know, a long-term business perspective, and then, you know, viability perspective, you probably like, you know, look at it. I'm sure Eric comes in, and, you know, even Dave and Justin, when they've been involved in the past, maybe have fought for something like this, because they're like, hey, listen, the gig might be up at some point where people like myself will be like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just beating the shit out of myself for 5 weeks every year. The community element does bring a ton to it, and I think that helps that survive. But they had seen some attrition, you know, over the couple of years prior. So maybe the reason it was so much, you know, there was so much more attendance this year was because, you know, 10% of the people knew that they were fighting for something bigger than just that week, right? I don't know. Yeah, it's a really good question. I do see that the challenge moving forward, that's not a complaint. I think it's like, you know, hey, if that layer is necessary because of all those things, great. I totally get it. I think that the schedule can be a little intense for those that are trying to win the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, I totally hear that perspective, and totally think that it's not a necessary step for what you were saying, crowning the fittest. I love it though for the community aspect of bringing us all together, and that I can be a part of that. And hey, CrossFit gets more money from me because I'm going to pay to do the open and the quarterfinals. So overall, yeah, I agree with what you say, that for the big picture, it's helpful, but it's not really that extra step needed.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. We're on completely the same page there. I do, you know, I think that like if we look 5 years out, like we want, you know, longevity and stability for our stars. They're going to spend some time paying attention to big earning opportunities in the off season. Like, you know, who wouldn't in the top echelon of the sport go to Rogue? You know, and it's not been typically a time on the calendar that you see a lot of athletes active. It immediately becomes something that they're going to figure into their calendar on an annual basis. It's a privilege and a huge life-changing earning opportunity, right? So I think just as like we factor into, you know, what a 12-month calendar looks like, because I do believe, you know, even though I own, you know, possibly the biggest event outside of the games that doesn't necessarily have any contribution to the CrossFit Games, I do believe, I'm not stupid. Like, people are at the top of the sport aren't focused on winning Wodapalooza or Rogue or, or Dubai primarily. They want to be the fittest on earth. Right. So I know that that's always going to be the primary focus of the season, but I do think that, us and, the world championship track of the sport need to, make sure that we keep in mind that they all work really well together, because if our stars are training full time and a deeper group is training full time, you're professionalizing the sport, more brands are coming in, there's more opportunity for exposure, that the ecosystem flourishes when those hands are washing each other and paying attention to each other, which we're working towards, right? Like, there's a lot of great conversations going on. I mean, I think to speak to that, like Wodapalooza, for instance, like, we're going to partner with CrossFit on that event this year. And I'm really excited about it. Like, that is, like Rogue was a CrossFit sanctioned event, we're going to be a sanctioned event. And it speaks to that because, there's a greater thing to be pointing towards as a group here, not working separate. So, we're excited to do that. And then, look forward on how those things work better together, as a cohesive unit moving forward.
Matt, you're familiar with like the golf tour and the tennis tour and all of those things. How long is it going to be? Because CrossFit's only been around for 15 years. So it's not like fully ingrained as a professional sport at this point. But if I'm a top end athlete and I see 3 events that pay way better for a 3-month season than one 7-month season overall, how long before I'm like, it just pays, it's more beneficial for me to focus on these 3 months than the other 7.
Yeah.
And I know you're not trying to do that.
No,
as an organizer. I'm just saying naturally.
These are things that we talk about with CrossFit. Like, it's not a us and them scenario. And I think I'm speaking to that by saying we're partnering with them on our event in Miami, where, I think the outsider could be like, well, you don't need to. Well, of course, nobody needs to do anything. That makes a lot of sense. Like, we want the Open to be successful because that's the Open's success is the best thing for the sport. If 400,000 people are doing something that is our sport on an annual basis, which, by the way, is the largest sporting event in the history of the world, that is a fact. We need to maintain that and grow that. That stuff is all like really cool for everyone. It's not, I think the challenge that we all face moving forward is, not, making athletes think like that, because, nobody's, sitting in a room being like, let's build this 3 event thing outside the system so that they don't do the CrossFit Games. I love the CrossFit Games. I'm a part of 5 wins with Matt at the CrossFit Games that are some of the greatest moments of my life. This one right here, like the both of them I was there for. Like, that, I would die if that wasn't a part of something that happened on an annual basis. I don't have anything to do with it directly from a business perspective, but I do indirectly, and I don't want that. Nobody wants, so that anybody who sees that, and I don't think you're saying that, there's no like push and pull there, really. We're all trying to find the right way to do it. And I think the true north that I know, when we talk to the organizers of Rogue and Dubai, is we're really just trying to, help bring along the professional side of the sport and pay as deep and high as possible as we can. So, more people have earning opportunities. And I think this year profoundly looks like it's a challenge now to like, wow, look at all the money that is outside of the system. Well, it's in the system. So yeah, it's certainly a challenge to navigate, but I think we all will put our heads together and make sure that somehow it all works together so that they're not working against each other. Right. I don't have the answer to that, but that there's no intent there, on the other side.
Well, and clearly it's all tied together. I mean, the people that got invited to Rogue had to place a certain, they had to be at the CrossFit Games and do certain things. You're not going to get these unknown people that are just not coming up through the Open or semifinals and then just showing up for Rogue and winning, because they're not going to get invited. You kind of have to go to the games and do well before you even get there.
Yeah. And I think, come on, like nobody supports the system more than Bill and Katie Henniger and Rogue. So it's,
you can't have one without the other, really.
It's just a genuine they put out this insane prize purse, and I think a lot of people that have, are once, twice, and three times removed are like, wow, that's the next games, or look at what they're trying to, they're not, they're trying to be rogue and build an awesome opportunity for, CrossFit athletes to make more money. Like, they don't have to do what they're doing. They're progressing. They're challenging guys like me, like, hey, your prize purse needs to come up, dude. Like, look what we're doing. I love it. And then, other brands, to help facilitate that, because they're some of the smartest people you'll ever meet in your life. And they know it's there. Like, they're not, because the worst thing that any of us could do is build this thing on stilts, where it's like, forward investment's always important in anything you believe in, or, any sort of, planning you do. But, over investment's risky for the space. Like, if we were giving a prize purse that wasn't sustainable and it killed us, well, what does that do for the space if Wodapalooza doesn't exist or Rogue doesn't exist? So those things are, done right by certainly organizations like Rogue to support and facilitate and help progress, the sport in a big way. It's coming and it's going really well. And I think, like, they set the mark this year, and everybody's kind of following along in the right way. So I don't know. I think that, if I was a CrossFit athlete today, I'd be really excited about what's going on. There's so, the secondary side of that is, like, all these platforms now, that because the magnitude of, the opportunity is creating great environments with, great athletes, that are challenging for those prizes. They're creating cool media platforms that gets their brand out more, and there's more eyeballs on those events, and more brands wanting to get involved and sponsor the athletes. Things are going really well because of that. So it all kind of works together.
Yeah. And I guess if you look at golf, I mean, the PGA Championship is still a major. And then you still have the Masters, the British Open, and the US Open.
It's a great example. Yeah.
So
I'm a huge golf fan, and it's some of my friends that'll watch this will laugh. I mean, it's probably why I train. I play a lot of golf competitively, and I've been a huge fan my whole life, but do some work with golf on the side as well. Noble's got into golf, which I'm super proud of. And there's a huge training component to golf. But when you look at, like, when all the shit hit the fan a couple of years ago, one of the first things that kind of come to mind is, like, as you look at how do we, find stability and structure, I'm just a sports fan in general, is like, where are there analogies out there to sports that struggled? And, the tour and CrossFit are very similar, we're at a point where, the players had a very, big point with Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Arnold Palmer. Basically, we're doing our own thing. That's how the PGA Tour got established, because it was a private organization before. But, there's so many analogies, and tennis is very similar. And, the ebbs and flows they went through, and the progression, we're still kind of tracking that. I think we just need to really, we have a huge opportunity to not make mistakes that other sports have throughout history, and use, some of a lot of the tour today is still changing on a yearly basis. They're constantly tweaking their system to make it better and more attractive to watch. So, you couldn't be more on point to reference golf and CrossFit. Those two people don't know that are listening. If you study golf, or and you don't know golf, and you look at it, it is so similar. Individual sport, touring sport, multiple opportunities, Rogue and Masters. Like, there's like analogies all over the place. There's like, bigger platforms. The only thing golf doesn't really have that we have is like this sort of like world championship, the one moment, but you could argue that some tournaments are bigger than others, but they don't point towards one moment where it's like, well, they do actually. I'm wrong. The tour championship, but that's not like the world championship, like CrossFit Games is, but yeah.
I would love to see a skins CrossFit challenge.
It's a good idea. I like that. That's a good
Skins
idea.
are so much fun to watch. I don't have the attention span for 18 holes, but like that would be a fun a fun little thing to get into.
They just did a 12-hole match with Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka last week. You know, so Marcus Wilson is the founder of Noble. We play a bit of golf together, and he swears that the perfect length for a golf round is 12 holes. He's like, after that, I'm done, man. Like 12 holes is the perfect length. So you're on to something.
Funny. Yeah,
I completely agree.
My grandfather was a huge golf fan when little, and I can remember going to his house and watching golf, and the Skins, when that was on, that was like the only thing that I could like pay attention to and understand. So
I love that. I used to watch that as a kid. Yeah, Freddie Couples was always a part of it. Yeah, I'm a big golf geek. Don't get into that tunnel. I'll talk about that for 4 straight hours.
The only thing I do, the other reference to golf that I use as a coach is when we're practicing Olympic lifting with my athletes and we're doing things and we talk about muscle memory. I always, at least for the men, and I should probably do it for the women too, I say, have you ever gone to the driving range and hit a bucket of balls? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, I do that all the time. I said, this is your bucket of balls. When we go through drills and, you know, high pulls and things like that, I say, this is your bucket of balls. It's the only other golf reference I use.
I like it. I like that. I'm still trying to get Matt Fraser to take up golf. That was like my one retirement goal for him was to get a set of clubs. We took him to Top Golf in Vegas when we were at a West Coast Classic, and we had a golf coach there. Is a friend of mine from Dubai, Alex Riggs. He's a CrossFitter. Him and Matt have become friends through social. Like Matt helps him with his lifts, and he coaches about like Steph Curry, and he's really good friends with a bunch of tour players. Super cool dude. And but he was in town. He was coaching Steph Curry. He was in town for a few weeks, and he was like, hey, I'll come over to the event. And I'm like, cool, I'll book Top Golf, and you're going to teach Matt how to golf. And Matt, just like, it's not a fast enough sport, I think, an engaged enough sport for him, but the driving range is, and he's hitting balls and he's struggling. And Alex gives him a couple tips, and he hits this like perfect little high draw. And he turned around and looked at me. I think we have it on video, and he was like, I get it. This is amazing. And so I was like, all right, well, we're going to play some more. And we haven't played since. So.
I want to talk about another aspect of this is I think the key component with you, the event organizers, are you're smaller. So you can make innovative changes and do things much quicker than CrossFit, the big entity, right? And so you can kind of set the example of what works and what doesn't work. And you've done that with sponsorships, especially this year at Wodapalooza, bringing in people from outside the normal space to sponsor Wodapalooza. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, the evolution, our space has done a really good job of creating, a viable platform that brands are attracted to. And I don't know how long you guys have paid attention to the sport, but I remember back in 2013 and 14, really when I started on the marketing side, I was working with Matt. I had my own brand in the space, which at the time we were just this easy platform for, that all entrepreneurial spirit. You could launch a t-shirt company and have a little success, and it was fun and exciting. The community was just so attracted to authentic things that were going on around it.
I need to stop you real quick there, because I've talked to so many people that are so bummed that Redline is no longer there. They were like, those were the best shorts ever.
I got I got a little Redline relic here.
I love it. My husband has a t-shirt. He still wears it. I got it at one of the regionals, one of the East regionals back in probably 2015.
That's so funny. The particularly the last 2 months, I've gotten a ton of that. I don't know if like historical footage of Matt has been like rolling around and people have been seeing it. It's, I've traveled a bit again, so maybe that's it. But like I've even had some people saying like, now's a good time to revive that. But that was a beautiful part of my life. Honestly, I mean, that gave me my start. That business is cuckoo, I'll tell you that. So I'm all set. Yeah. But that time, the Kill Cliff, grew. Like, people don't realize what grew in our space. I talk to a lot of people about this, because again, and this speaks to the real question is, when I hear, or I go speak to a non-endemic brand. So, for the listeners, a brand that would never really tell a fitness or training story would be a non-endemic brand, certainly a CrossFit story. And you can list many of them, you know, at the, you know, McDonald's and, you know, whatever. You would know what an endemic brand would be, you know, Rogue or, you know, Reebok or Noble, whatever. Those are your endemics, right? But when I talk to a non-endemic brand, I try to set that sort of baseline for them. Is like, you know, Rogue was started in a CrossFit gym. It's the largest equipment manufacturer in the world. They buy more steel in the United States than anybody. They're worth billions of dollars, I'm sure. You know, nobody knows, but like they're and they've earned every penny of it. They are amazing. It's a true marvel. You know, American manufacturing marvel. Out of a CrossFit gym, you know, RX bar out of a CrossFit gym sold for $650 million. You know, just two kids, you know, making bars in their mom's oven. You know, there's Noble, insane, yeah. Out of CrossFit New England. You know, there's so many of those stories. And you know, I get to like, it's so fun. I get to tell that story so often, but that group and, you know, this space and community has built this, you know, awesome platform that's incredibly attractive for people to tell stories around. And it's a really incredible consumer market. And all those brands have proven the worth for, you know, those conversations to be had. And they're easy at this point because, you know, a lot of times those non-endemic brands that you'll see, like Yingling's a perfect example. Yingling is now for the first time going to do something at an event at Wodapalooza. You know, a lot of times it comes from, it's like Fight Club. There's like somebody inside that is a part of it that's, you know, talked so long and hard about it that finally somebody broke and said, I'm go do it, you know, and then we, you know, we get it. That's a winning formula because if we just get someone to show up and experience what we do, our community turns up, shows up and shows a love and it proves, you know, a really good, you know, worthy space for them to be in. So those conversations are super exciting and they're not hard. And I think that the last piece of that is, you know, what's emerged certainly through COVID too, is training. Like, you know, we're very specific CrossFit, but training and fitness and health and wellness is now emerged as the most important, I think, sports storyline in the world. And I've watched brands, you know, Noble is a training brand, right? And, you know, they're emerging into golf, you know, tennis, other sports, you know, they'll be in every sport, I'm sure at some point, but true to their brand will be, you know, they really want to tell training stories. In football, they have Mac Jones, you know, he's a Noble athlete, the quarterback of the Patriots. And they, you know, they're not as worried about him throwing touchdown passes as they are wanting to tell a story that how hard he works to get to that point. You know, that storyline we're best at. I know as an agency and as a space, we're the sort of tip of the iceberg on that. Is, you know, we're the pinnacle of training, and what we've done telling stories around training is probably the most relatable sport product out there. Because here, like golf, you've talked about, take basketball or football, I watch them all. Some things I can relate to, some I can't. You know, I played college football, so I can relate a little to it, but, you know, you can't relate to the speed and intensity and skill that goes on in that sport. It's, you know, super aspirational, but it's less inspirational. Like, it's not getting me into the gym, you know, because I want to be like, you know, Tom Brady or, you know, whomever it is, or LeBron James or Tiger Woods. You know, you can't even fathom what they do, but when they train, you can really wrap yourself around that. So how LeBron trains and how Tiger trains and how Tom Brady trains, and you're seeing it. I think, you know, if you think about it right now, you're seeing a lot of marketing done around those athletes too, and just how they train, because it's most relatable. Like, more people on scale can watch Tom Brady work out and be like, that's something I can do, and then be more attracted to whatever he's doing it around. And that's why you're seeing some of the strangest brands telling training stories, because it's the most relatable sports story in the world. And that's where we are, right? So like, people have, you know, experienced that. And then when you're dealing with these large companies outside the space that have started to tell training story, you've seen North Face and Walmart, and, you know, you would be blow your mind who's telling training stories. And they then say, well, that works here on this scale, you know, outside of it. Why don't we get involved in the really focused, you know, training as a sports space? So it's become an easier and easier conversation. And then again, I mentioned the other thing, which is like a lot of times internal at these businesses, there's believers, and there was a couple CrossFitters at Yingling. There's a girl up in Boston. And, one of the owners, it's the oldest brewery in America. One of the old owners, 6th or 7th generation owners, is a fitness freak and wants to be more health and wellness focused. And then a couple CrossFitters internal. Well, if we're going to do that, we should market through the sport of fitness. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm even directly answering it, but that's really like the circle of life for us and kind of why things have gotten really crazy around a lot of brands. Like you see Ram coming in and, they first come to Wodapalooza, right? They're now a big sponsor of the CrossFit season because, they want to tell that training story. It's so relatable, engageable from their audience and authentic. They work with Matt for a long time. Like that stuff is more and more prevalent and easier. It's to the point now where we're having to be more selective, which is really where things get fun. But there's multiples in categories now fighting for space that are coming in from the outside. You see Monster came in this year, and the CBD world's crazy. CBD MD's in. Beam's such a big player in our space. They're born in our space, right? But yeah, that non-endemic stuff is where, as an outsider and a fan, you should get really excited when you see brands like Monster come in. And I know that's been a weird one for our space, but it's not for me because honestly, step aside from everything else. That is one of the most iconic sports brands in the history of sport. There's no debating that. And I know from a product perspective, people get all wrapped up in, well, Coke's attached to it. Well, people don't even realize why Coke's attached to that. Coke's attached to that because they're a distributor. And in order to get the distribution through Coke early on, they had to give them a piece of the business. Coke has nothing to do with formulation of Monster. Zero. Like they're not even involved in the business. There are other products in our space that people are like thumbs up on that have the same makeup of a Monster ultra light that is a, more geared product towards our space. Everybody just gets these, Greg Glassman gets pissed off because we're talking to a company that's attached to Coke and he wants to fight sugar. Well, that's great. Good for him. But that isn't the story. That brand coming in our space is badass. And yeah, I'm a healthy guy. I work out all the time. Like I don't drink Coca-Cola, I don't want my kids drinking that, but Monster is like Red Bull. Those are iconic sports brands. When you see that coming in our space, like we're in really good shape.
So the next step I want to take this to making a professional sport, and I know you follow all the sports, and no matter what you believe about this philosophically, when do you see gambling coming into CrossFit? And does the next location of the CrossFit Games need to be in a state where there is legalized gambling?
Wow, I didn't think we'd go there. That's a new one for me. Good question. It's funny. We've been approached a little bit on some stuff like that pertaining to Wodapalooza. And, I feel like I've always had like a really good feel for when the time is right. NFTs are kind of buzzing around and like I'm feeling that out. But, I think that gambling in CrossFit, I don't know. Honestly, I do, I don't know. That's a really, by the way, let's back up. There's been gambling on CrossFit for 5 years. You've been able to bet on, who's going to win the games through offshores for a while. And it's never been something that has really taken off. Do I think that there could be some stuff, and this would be gaming, by the way, fantasy related, that could be like very attractive and have some legs? Yes. Because I think people don't even realize that fantasy sports is just another layer of gambling anyway, right? Like it's an easy way to say it's not gambling, but it is. So I do like the FanDuels of the world have made that famous. Like, I think that's stuff that I could see being more viable in our space is, these pools that people pick, what the top 20 of a leaderboard looks like. And, whoever's the most successful top to bottom could win a couple $100,000 because, 10,000 people put in a certain amount of money. I don't know if straight gaming works isn't the right way, but would take off in our space. I actually, and I worry about it too, to be honest with you, because I just think it brings a whole new layer of concern to, what could be going on behind the scenes, honestly. I know this firsthand. I mean, I've just seen how gambling can be really, really pollute things. I was at Boston College when there was a gambling scandal with football. I was a part of the program. So, we had players betting against us, and throwing games and crazy shit like that stuff. What would, worry me. And it's why I think that a lot of major market sports in the US have been so protective, and I know that's being loosened of that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of gambling, honestly. So, and I think fantasy stuff, I love. I think that could be really fun and cool. Low barrier of entry, bigger groups participating. But I do fear the 10-1 odds and, who's going to win and not. Like, that stuff to me is marginally concerning, honestly.
So I'm not a big fan of gambling either. I know what it does for like the NFL, making it the largest sport in the United States by far. I look at it as a way like when Matt and Sammy are sitting watching the games, and I'm just taking this from his video, right? And they're betting on who's going to win the tiebreaker, right? Just fun bet. But if that was possible on an app, like how many people would dive into that, right? Or
that stuff could be really fun, which is, those micro
real-time
moments
stuff.
Yeah. Real-time stuff.
The live
couldn't
stuff.
agree more. That stuff could be really cool. It's like, honestly, like, it's undeniable it's coming, right? It's stuff that is becoming more and more prevalent. I could do, like, on a personal level, I could do without, like, with or without, like, it doesn't really change. Like, I don't love it. I do have, like, I've seen it. Maybe I've just been, put my hand on the stove and got burnt. Like, I was on, in a situation and saw how it worked very poorly for a sport and a team. But I don't know. It's interesting. I just what I don't see is our crowd being that's where, like, being a user, it is interesting. Our sport consumer plays the sport. Like, it's a little like golf. Like, football fans don't necessarily play the sport, right? Like, there's a very different fan base, but I don't see our fan base as a gambling fan base. I mean, we just did an event in Vegas. Like, I don't think that, I think, today that was less, it was attractive. It's cool. I think we all, there's certainly a group that's like, Vegas is great. I want to go and party and have fun, but I don't, especially, like, we had a lot of people there. It wasn't this, like, big groups on Sunday night after we were all done running out and playing blackjack and craps and stuff like that. It was, people wanting to go to a party for an after party for a pool. I don't think it's a gambling crowd. That's the other side of it. Who does gambling great is golf in Europe, in England, particularly with the British Open. They've somehow figured that whole thing out where it isn't like, I think everything in the United States is like, we put things out that can get super addicting and it tracks towards, like, ending up in some sort of program. Like, and I can say that because I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's like Gamblers Anonymous is, it's like, I feel like we're, like, always developing things that bring you towards something that needs you to, get counseling on to recover. In England, they don't have the problem. It's like, the golf gambling is just this casual pastime of, players, parents. They talk about it with the British Open. Like, Rory's parents won $100,000 the day that he won the British Open because they bet on him, and it's, like, accepted. Here we would be like, wait, you bet on your kid to win the US Open? Like, that doesn't, like, it's weird. But
yeah,
I don't
know if our crowd would be super into that, but maybe what you just talked about, like that specific stuff.
Yeah, I would say the four people on this call, we watch every second of the games anyway, right? We don't need that to bring us in, but there's that other crowd that you could up viewership because it becomes a game for them. And again, I'm not a gambler. I look at it from a sports fan and what I've seen over the years and how that does bring people too. But we can definitely move on to another subject. I want to go back and talk about last year's semifinals. Yep. You mentioned COVID being a tough thing, and it was good to get back out on the floor. But you also had two semifinals that were changing locations and battled extreme heat at both of them. And they were 2 weeks apart. We talked to Kristen just a couple weeks ago. She said that was bananas.
Is she recovered yet?
Just about.
I think so.
Yeah. You know, it was one of the funniest pieces of that was we were going to do walk back to pre-COVID. We had just executed Waza. We were all boarding flights the next day. So the 12th of March, the world ended. The 13th and 14th, my entire team was flying to California to execute West Coast Classic. We were going to do 5 events that year in a 5-month stretch. And I think we all, after doing the 2 semifinals, said, well, we were kind of, we would have done it because we're just a crowd of, making things happen no matter what. How we would have looked after those 5 events would have been interesting. I just don't I think I know how to structure it today for more volume. I think at the time we all were like, whatever, Wodapalooza is the biggest event in the world. And this stuff, is all fractional to it. But what is the same at a West Coast Classic and Granite Games? They're very similar in nature to Wodapalooza, honestly. We're not doing 1,000, 1,100 volunteers and 2,500 athletes, but it doesn't change a whole lot for particularly a person like Kristen, right? The media volume's the same in a lot of ways. Less people to manage, but we're still pushing out a lot of the same things at every event, preparation's very similar. So yeah, I mean, it was, I'm so proud of what we did in our team. That's a lot. Events are crazy. So it's just, we are, and I am certainly as a manager and leader, more prepared for that moving forward for sure.
So let's hear what's coming up. Let's talk about Wodapalooza.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm so pumped. I just got back last night super late. I was in Miami for a few days with the team, doing some last site visits with some brands and some of our vendors. It is going to be so cool. I'm really I probably say this every year and people just think oh, Keith's selling us on Wodapalooza again. And I just, one of the things I think we're best at is just evolving, creating a better experience than the year prior. And we've done it again, and I know it. And we've also didn't get to do it the year prior, right? So we're just all excited to be really back in what is our favorite environment. And, it's just, I know who's coming on the floor and off, and I know, what we've, put together from a sponsorship perspective and the brands that will exhibit. And, I know the changes that we've made, and I'm just really excited for people to see all of it and experience it. The show is going to be amazing. And I know a lot of people come there for a lot of different reasons. Any reason that you come has been improved. I know that, whether it's, more seating as a spectator, because you want to watch, as an athlete on the floor, how we, handle, scheduling or, the spacing of lanes, all this micro improvement has happened, and we've had a lot of time to do it. And I'm just pumped for people to see it. We've actually made some drastic changes, which I think people will be surprised to see. We've reconfigured the property quite a bit, out of necessity and also for way better experience. I don't know if you guys remember the deck. The deck has been eliminated. That was an awesome experiment. Honestly, I really loved it in theory. It just, wasn't as functional as we wanted it to be. And so we've moved our flagler stage down and eliminated where the quad was for all the partners. And we pushed flagler up against the fountain. And we've created a second flagler stage where the entrance was, and we've moved the entrance. So there's 2 stages that are going to run along that. And the Gauntlet and I'll talk a little bit about that. That deck stage is now just the Gauntlet stage. There's no other competition going on that. Is where is at primarily in the space that the old entrance was. It's a 15 lane floor that's, you know, up in the front there. And we've actually expanded the flagler stage to 30 lanes. And, you know, it's helped us put more seating in. You know, we've added a lot more seating. You know, we've added very specific, better VIP areas for those that spend a lot more money on VIP tickets. We've expanded seating at both Bayside and Flagler in a great way. That was one of the big pain points, is people being able to get in the seats to see the elites. So, and then the partner quad moved over where the food court was behind the Tina Hills stage. You know, people will enter around Tina Hills and kind of walk through the quad into the fountain. It's going to be so cool. So, and we've got so many cool people coming on and off the floor. You know,
the one, oh, go ahead. Were you going to tell us who they were?
Yeah, just so like,
oh, please do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Matt, I mean, Matt's always there because he's, you know, he's our new volunteer. You know, he likes to build rigs and all that stuff. But like, you know, Justin Medeiros isn't competing. Like, this is, I think it's most important on that side. Like, you're going to see us announce all these great athletes that are going to compete for our biggest prize purse in history. Top prize is $100,000. You know, we're giving away $500,000 this year. But you know, there's so many cool athletes on the floor. The team division, you know, Rich is coming, the Smith brothers. There's other teams being put together. Like the team division is getting wacky. But you know, Matt's coming off the floor. Justin Medeiros, Mal O'Brien, Amanda Barnard, Katrin David's daughter, Annie Thor's daughter. There, you know, Brooke Wells, Sydney, her sister. Like, there's all these people coming to just hang out. It's sort of become this like NBA All-Star game weekend where if players don't make the team, they just come and hang out.
And doesn't want to go to South Beach in January.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. But Matt is HWPO training is involved in the event this year, which is really proudful and exciting for me, obviously, because, you know, he being my guy, he is HWPO training and in here programming the Gauntlet. And that'll be, this isn't announced. So that'll be announced today or tomorrow. So, you know, that's going to be super exciting. It's his first kind of, you know, dive into competition programming.
Is it going to be a 40-minute EMOM?
No, it's an hour. Well, so the Gauntlet's an hour long.
I'm so good at those.
It fits perfect. It fits perfect into his whole, you know, but it's like multiple workouts over an hour that you keep like shifting on the stage. So,
yeah.
But
for those of you that don't know, hard work pays off. Matt's programming. They're famous for their 40-minute EMOMs on Saturdays. So that's why I said that, because they're so enjoyable.
They are. And Matt was famous for his 40-minute EMOMs far prior to the existence of HWPO. That used to be what I would suffer through on a Saturday if I was visiting Matt, was, you know, getting pulled into some disgusting 40-minute EMOM in his garage. But that'll be cool. You know, what we're trying to do too is, people will be excited about this, is pull together like a little bit of a, you know, CrossFit Legends division of people that will do the Gauntlet. Like Justin Medeiros mentioned maybe wanting to do it. You know, Julie Foucher is coming, Carrie Pierce is coming, and they've both said they want to do it. So I'll check in with all of them, you know, to make sure they know what they're getting themselves into, or maybe we'll pair them up in teams. But I think we're going to try to have a group of people on before the final on Sunday morning, do it in a heat, just for fun, for people to be able to see some of those guys. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be amazing. So I hope you guys are excited.
Yeah. And for those people that can't make it, you guys have removed the paywall for the broadcast, which is another
Kristen will kill me, but the most important piece.
Yeah. I wasn't going to let you slip on that one.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It is, you know, it's funny. We worked a lot on that this last week. You know, the last few days down in Miami. That is going to be amazing. You know, we have Charlie Doobie and his team who does the games, and Rogue, you know, running our broadcast, you know, and all the familiar faces that, you know, Pat Sherwood's coming to be on the desk, and you know, commentators like Chase and Sean Woodland, and, you know, Tommy Marquez, and, you know, Bill Grunler, like those, you know, all those faces are coming to contribute. And, you know, we'll probably uniquely run a little bit of a crazy desk where we're running a ton of people through, like brand founders and athletes like Matt and Katrin and Annie, like all those people that are there. Julie's running some amazing stuff with CrossFit, health and the new performance care system. We're going to let her speak a little bit about that. Like, we're going to, give the people watching a ton of information and access to what the festival's like if you can't be there. Like that the one thing I told Charlie that I thought was most important with this is, like, if we're going to bring this to life and spend a ton of money to broadcast this, I want it to be what Wodapalooza is on site. Like, I want people to understand what this is, because it is a competition, but there's so much more to it. And those of you that have been to it know, like, it's not, you can, there can be the best athletes in the world on Flagler, and there's still thousands of people walking around shopping. Like, it's not everything to everybody at that event. And I want to bring the festival to life, and it's free this year, be streamed on our platforms. And, our partners are the ones to thank for that, because everybody, in order to do that, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest to be able to produce, especially on 4 stages. There's a lot of moving pieces. And, our partners stepped up in a big way. Specifically Whoop is, focused on the broadcast and came in just to support that. Noble, obviously, as our presenting partner, stepped up in a big way to help with that. And everybody really contributed to that. So, we wouldn't be doing that or able to do that without those guys. And so they really deserve all the credit. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. You say that with the credit though, but you've deserved the support. You've worked really hard to create this world-class event and have such a great reputation where volunteers want to come to your event. They want to work there. You need all those people to do it, and you're very good about giving them credit, but you built something that you should be proud of, that people want to support and want to help, which is really cool.
Well, Kat, thank you very much. That's really nice, and that's humbling to hear. But it's you've been, you contribute, like, you guys are a part of that. Like, that it's easy. I know we do, especially my smaller team that works annually on something like this, that we're good at what we do, and we work really hard for what comes to life there. But anybody that could sit in a seat that I sit in and wave their hand and, like, take a lot of credit for that is out of their mind, because there's 1,100 people that contribute to that, there's millions of dollars that go through producing an event like that. And that doesn't happen without Noble and, Whoop and Wit. And I don't want to miss any of them. Tier and all our partners, Yingling and CBDMD, and it just goes down and it goes on and on and on and on. And yeah, I agree. Like, I think we've done really well with them and by them. And, that's, how partnership works. But volunteers, like, you guys coming and contributing and building content and providing a great experience for people, but brands stepping up, they always forward invest in us. And I'm so proud of that. And thank you for saying that. But it's just that there isn't a bigger collective effort that I know of in the world than that event. Because I'm telling you right now, it's like, I tried to control that event and really run it the first year I was there, and I ended up in the hospital for 10 days. So I promise you it's not me.
Well, you say that, Matt, but you're putting your finger on even the other semifinals, right? Granite and West Coast. I've been a volunteer since 2014 in this space. I know Kat and Amy have volunteered and been at different events. Everything is being stepped up a notch. Everybody is pushing the envelope. That Minnesota Vikings practice facility, phenomenal. Like, and it kind of sucks that COVID kind of didn't allow it to have the big crowd. And West Coast, my God, that arena was awesome.
It was a cool one. Do you guys remember that? Like, you were around the grid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that arena was, the real backstory is we were totally screwed because California was a hot mess and our venue was going to only allow, we were kind of like in a pecking order with other events that they were going to figure out who they were going to let operate in the California State Fair, which I'm sure takes way more priority over our event, ended up in the Del Mar Arena and the whole property. It's like a big month-long event, but we were like, running around trying to figure out. And I was like, it's time for Vegas. Like, we've been talking about it for years. There's venues everywhere.
Yeah.
And that immediately came to mind. Like I went there and we looked at like 30 venues, but I knew before I even got on the flight where we were going to do it, because I had been to the combine for the grid there, and that arena is amazing. And it's like clean, up to date. So that place, I think you'll see more stuff go on there. I don't know where we'll end up with that event this year. I mean, I would be really sad to not be in California considering its roots with CrossFit. But it's hard to deny an arena like that. We do want to give more access to those events too. So it's hard to do a mass participation event in June in Vegas because we'd have to be outside. But that Minnesota Vikings facility, there's no, I mean, we were probably their first outside event. I think we were officially their first outside event. We're the first people to stay in that hotel, which was gorgeous. And we just talked to them last week. Like the players that came and watched, the GM was there, the coach, like those guys are begging us to come back. That facility is insane, and they're going to build around it too. So they're putting a curling arena in. I'm excited to see what plays out there over time. I think we can do a lot with that. I mean, that'd be a great venue for, the CrossFit Games. I mean, it's that event, that venue is badass. I'm glad you're saying that. That's like, that I'm excited to be. Minnesota was like a little tight on COVID at that point, understandably. So I think a lot of people get scared away. That's a cool place to experience an event.
What was really cool is from a media perspective, the press box, state of the art, everything, Wi-Fi as fast as I've ever seen, which we don't get normally. It just was freaking awesome.
It was cool. That, we looked at that place for a couple of years. That was a casualty of COVID as well. We were supposed to run that event there, the sanctioned side. So but we're definitely going back there for sure. We'll see where we end up with West Coast Classic, but that event, I'm excited to see what we can do with that venue. Maybe build a stadium over in the dirt lot next to the hotel and make people run around a little bit on the property. It'll be fun.
Well, I want to go back to Waza just a little bit with the Gauntlet. You recently destroyed Mars and Heber in Asabeth. Are you going to defend your title in the Gauntlet?
Dude, that's one area I think that Marston, if he was smart and wanted to talk a lot of dung, that would be the place for him to do it, with all kinds of different gymnastics in it. I did it with them last year, which was total crime scene. It was like 95 degrees and we hadn't slept in like 4 days. I will do it again with them this year so everybody can watch me take a beating. But I don't think I'm a realist. I don't, and fitness is not like football where you can be like, I'm a gamer and I'll get it done. Like if your lungs aren't big enough and your muscles aren't big enough, you're just not going to make it happen. So I don't know. I'm going to be with Marston, Heber, Matt, and Justin next weekend in Salt Lake City. We're doing a fundraiser for Operation Underground Railroad, OUR CrossFit. So people got to like buy tickets to be one of our partners in a hero WOD. So Marston and I are facing off with a partner in a hero WOD that is like programmed perfectly for me. So he's going down in Salt Lake. So he'll have 2 losses under his belt. And then I think he's going to get the W in Miami.
Well, I've always said you're the king of the machines, and you definitely proved it with Asabeth. You also did the ruck run, right, in Vegas?
It did. That actually served a purpose. Funny enough, it's something that I'm like, I'd be relatively competitive in, because again, I'm decently fit, certainly with machines, and I can run in a bigger guy, so I can move some things while running, decently. It still hurts, but Todd, actually one of the original, employee number 1 at Noble. He's the CMO at Noble. Who's just as good at all that stuff as I am. And I were like, hey, we'll do it. Dylan was like, I need help, testing the heat in the course. And we're like, we'll do it. Well, Tommy I gathered a big crowd. I don't remember who everybody was, but Tommy jumped in and we did it. And yeah, it was, I'm really glad we did it to test it. By the way, like the result of the day, which was the same exact heat. I think what we didn't anticipate is the intensity at which the weekend, the stress and all that stuff brings to an athlete, and how that aggregates over, days. And that would contribute to, because the heat didn't bother me, and the heat can bother me quite a bit. I think my time would have finished like 15th in the men's heat. So but again, I wasn't doing the stuff that they did the day before. I was fresh, and there's a lot less pressure on me. But the heat really, I was like very dry, but it didn't really bother me. But I love that. Like I enjoyed that. I was like, I'm like so busy doing so many things. Like to get a chance to, like, what I would say contribute on some things like that is fun every once in a while. I was an athlete my whole life, and to be able to, like, do something that helped Dylan bring a better experience to the athletes on the floor was really cool. Although we didn't, they all hated it because it was so hot. But Todd beat me. That was I had a massive race with Tommy to the finish. Tommy Marquez and I were like passing each other a bunch, and then it's a 5K. I don't remember how much weight we had on our back, but I tried to sneak up on him on the last turn, and everybody, as I was sprinting up the last leg, tipped him off, and I had him. I lost by a second.
It was talked about a lot in the media room. I'll just say that.
Oh, that's great.
Well, Matt, we're coming up on an hour here, and as always, I could talk to you for another one, but we want to respect your time. And I know you're a busy man going into Wodapalooza, and can't wait to see you down there in Miami.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. It's great to see you guys, and let's sit down when I'm there. I'd love to catch up with you guys in Miami and ask you guys some questions, see how much fun you're having, and see what you think of what we put together there. I'm excited for everybody to see it. Make sure people come. Honestly, like that's it's going to be a show, and we'll find a place for you to sit. I promise. We built more seats.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys. It's great to see you.
Matt.